as we already covered yesterday, it's already happening. You've got one who's been suspended. On that very same council, there are now apparently two others who are also under investigation by reform, which is quite funny. You've had a situation come out in another council where if you want to follow all the stuff that's been going on with some of these incredibly well vetted candidates, Reform UK exposed their Blue Sky account. If you follow them, if you're still on Twitter, they've got one on there as well. You can follow them and you can see all the stuff they have just been posting about all these candidates. And there's one in particular where apparently these four candidates vetted each other. It's just like, what? That's not how vetting works. You can't just go, yeah, I'll vet you, you vet me, and we know we're both all right, so of course we're gonna. It's like that's not how vetting works. And then one of the other fun things that's happened recently is someone has come out as being an absolute conspiracy kook who wants to try and place a ban on chemtrails. So, yeah, honestly, looks like there's going to be so much crazy stuff just go on here. And one of the things I have said is that now they have control of these 10 councils, they're going to find it so hard to actually run like these councils. A lot harder than they think it is. A lot harder. And that's what I am waiting for. When the rubber finally hits the road and they realize, oh, actually running these councils, actually being a local councillor, actually quite hard work. Because all these reform councillors talk a big game about how wonderful and amazing they're going to be and all the stuff they're going to do. They can't do half of it. Because as a councillor, it's not even their responsibility. So let's dive into this. Because I'm expecting, honestly, over the next couple of weeks, a lot of stories to come out about some of these like councillors and what goes on in some of these council chambers. So, and like I say, also my offer is still out there for like anyone who was, ex-councillor or councillor on one of these councils. Please do come to talk to me. I would love to platform you, talk about what a job of an actual council is, what it is you actually do, the stuff and issues you were facing on the council before these reform guys taken over, and the problems and stuff that they are going to face. Because, oh boy, I really want to platform, like say, you guys and get talking about that. So if you do know anyone or if you do happen to see this, please do get in contact with me. I would love to hear from you. So let's crack on into this. But before we do that, like, share, all the jazz. Support the page, the Patreon page, buy me coffee, YouTube button, YouTube subscription. It's also now doing live as well, so you can drop a live chat in there as well if you want. That does help support the channel as well. And of course, it is Wednesday, so Pony Club Day as well. So for our Patreons and of course the YouTube subscribers, part of the Pony Club down below as well. You'll get a special video for me today as well. Like I say, you'll also get access to all the other videos and stuff I've made as well. So let's crack on then today on this. So this comes from the Independent. Even though they have control of 10 councils, Reform may find it running them is way harder than they actually think. And one of the things I'm looking forward to is how quickly those two regional mayor candidates are going to fail. Andrew Jenkins and Luke Hall, especially Luke Hall. He's got no experience in politics whatsoever. So he's going to be dictated to by Reform HQ. And when eventually things start going wrong for him, which they will, oh boy, that is going to go spectacularly wrong on that foot. So In 11 years as a member of the European Parliament and, of course, 10 months as an MP, Nigel Farage has tasted power as a one-man band of UKIP, the Brexit Party, and now Reform UK, without ever having any responsibility. This has now changed after Reform's advance in Thursday's last local elections, where Farage Party now has 677 councillors and runs 10 authorities. Their actions in office will provide a huge test for Reform as it tries to show that it is a credible party for power nationally. It has built grassroots organizations and, quote, professionalized. Oh, yeah, professionalized the party in a way that Farage's previous vehicles had failed to do. His council candidates were carefully vetted. Yeah, carefully vetted. Unlike, of course, his standard bearers at last year's general election. Though it is likely that some with controversial views slipped through the net and may soon find that they now command very unwanted headlines. Oh, it's already happening. It is already happening. Because they have tried to sort of professionalize a lot of these people. So what they've done is they've gone, right, who actually is capable of, keeping, stum about their, controversial views. That's what they've done. Who is able to keep their mouth shut about their controversial views when it comes to being in, that council chamber? But just because they are capable of doing that does not mean that they're going to be a good councillor. Anyway, back to this. The signs are, of course, that Reform HQ will try to keep a very tight rein on all these new representatives, but experience suggests that will be harder than it sounds, and it will absolutely be impossible. If they think they can somehow control all these people from a central Reform HQ down in London, think again. Think again. That's not how local politics works. I've described it before. Each local constituency is its own individual Westminster with its own problems, its own local politics. You name it. You want to control all that from a centrally located office in London? That's not going to go well. Anyway, while many people, of course, turned to Reform last Thursday because they are disenchanted with both Labour and the Conservatives, some will have had voted, of course, on local issues and would have been also attracted by Farage's pledges to root out waste and keep down council tax bills. The Independent believes that Reform will struggle to turn this very simplistic slogans of an election campaign into hard policy. Farage wants a Doge in every council, a reference, of course, to the Department of Government Efficiency set up by, of course, Elon Musk for Donald Trump. Of course, ensuring that value for money is, of course, very vital when it comes to the UK's public finances are, of course, under intense pressure. Now, that is something I think the left should actually care about. We should actually care about, value for money. We should care about that. And we should be worried, if waste is, how can we deal with that waste? Now, there already are internal, things in the government. There are audit officers. We have people, responsible for doing that constantly in office. And that's what we should be talking about. You turn around when someone goes, oh, there should be a Doge in this council. You just turn around and just go, well, hold on. There's this person, this person, and this person that do exactly that. What makes you think those people aren't doing their jobs properly? All, adds up to these people have no idea what goes on in their local government. But there's the idea that this now hidden treasure trove is waiting to be discovered in town halls is fanciful. Local authorities have borne the brunt of austerity measures imposed by central government and have been hollowed out. Their reserve kitties have been largely spent. Several councils, including the Tory-run ones, are in the red. And others, like Birmingham and Nottingham City Councils, have effectively declared themselves bankrupt. Many authorities can now provide little more than their statutory responsibilities, such as adult and child social care, special education needs, and even after the Starmer government did provide extra money for councils, funding now per resident is still 19% lower than in 2020, according now for the Institute of Fiscal Studies. So it is not easy out there. It is not easy. And this is when you are going to see them really struggle, because that is the reality. The reality is austerity hit local councils hard. The Conservatives made local councils bear the brunt of austerity. They're the ones who did austerity. They're the ones who brought it in. I don't like, of course, that in many cases, the current Labour government is following along with some of that austerity stuff, but they have put some money into sort of some of the stuff, but I still don't think it's enough. I still think they do need to be doing a lot more on that stuff. But the idea that somehow they're going to come in and, as it said there, find this pirate's treasure hidden behind the mayor's desk. Oh no, that isn't going to happen. That is not going to happen at all. So reform admits its approach will be based on ideology, as well as saving money. Wow. You're going to approach this on an ideological basis, not on a policy issue, where you might find problems, and then you might find, well, maybe this policy needs to be tweaked a bit because that's not what, is going on there. You can already see the disasters waiting to happen. And bear in mind, we have seen what happens when you have a government who ran on, free market fundamentalist policies, and then when bad stuff happened, they went, oh no, that's not our policies that are failing. It must be the woke blob. And you are going to get, I guarantee you now, a lot of these councillors are going to start attacking council staff. That's why you've had, I think it was Unison and Unite, they've come out and said, if you're a council worker and you work in one of those now reform-owned councils, you probably want to join a union. And I would echo that as well. If you are working in one of those councils, one of those local authorities that is now reform-owned, make sure you join the union, because you might find you need their help. You might find you might be in need of their help. So back to this. It promises to end the woke nonsense in town halls. Farage has advised council officers working on diversity, equality, and inclusion and net zero to now look for alternative careers. Yet, as our political editor obviously revealed, the extent of such appointments has been exaggerated. Most of the authorities Reform 1 were previously under the control of the Tories. And that's something a lot of people haven't talked about. Remember when it was said back up there that a lot of those Tory councils were in the red? They were in trouble. And they had been, bear in mind, bailed out by a Tory government. Michael Gove gave just a little bit of more money for those Tory councils just to keep their heads above water. But if you're a Labour-controlled council, well, no such luck. But now you've got this going on, and many of those, again, ex-Tory councils are, hey, when should we be putting a bet on when's the first reform council to declare bankruptcy or go into bankruptcy? Because that won't be good. Well, won't be funny, but won't be good for local residents, but it will be funny. So many of those, of course, previously in the control of the Tories, who are known for their adherence to the DEI clause. Savings now from ending such practices may prove paltry. Zia Yusuf's Reform chair wants to, quote, remoralize young people and bring in a patriotic curriculum in schools so that pupils are no longer taught to, quote, hate their country. A much better approach would, of course, to be honest and a balanced appraisal of the history of the British Empire, including episodes such as the slave trade. And this is something else we should worry about, because education does start at a local level. Now, Department of Education ultimately is the final decider, but if this is now being pushed at a local level about what textbooks to buy, which ultimately is what happens, you could see some similar fights maybe even break out about what goes on in your school. And I will tell you this now, if you are or have a child that is in school, then and in one of these reform now controlled areas, my advice to you, start paying a lot more attention about what goes on with your school governors. If there is an opportunity to become a school governor, go do it, because your schools that your child might get put in might be trying to be forced to buy, oh, don't worry, we're just remoralizing your child's education. Gotta watch out for that. Gotta watch out for that. The party's, of course, new local champions include Andrew Jenkins, the mayor now of Greater Lancashire, who have vowed to oppose, of course, housing asylum seekers in their area who cross the channel in small boats. This will probably now require legal action, since contracts signed by the Home Office are in place until 2029. Good luck on that. Farage's councils may also resort to legal challenges to stop the building of winds and even solar farms, which would be regrettable. That would be massively regrettable, because if you've got a local wind or solar farm in your area, that can help bring down your local electricity prices. And now Reform Council's going, nah, don't want that wind farm, cancel that solar farm, not going to happen. Anyway, it would, of course, be no surprise if the courts ruled that asylum and energy policy matters are for the national government. Again, will not be surprised, because this is what they do not understand. They are dictating that at a local level, we get to set that. You do not. That is a national government one. But they intend to try and muck up so much of this stuff as they possibly can. And I've said before, I'm worried about what could happen to DSA. I am really worried about what could happen to DSA. Where are we? So yes, Reform also now intends to bring in outside auditors to review council contracts with private companies. This could end up spending millions of pounds of local taxpayer money on fruitless challenges, money that councils plainly do not have. Yeah, it won't. You're bringing those outside auditors, good luck. What did you find? Probably nothing. Because if these councils were already, quote, I don't know, corrupt or anything like that, they would have been found out. Now, does this happen from time to time? Yes, it does. But it's not as widespread as a lot of people claim it is. Because if you looked at any of the Reform Facebook pages in my local area, they will proudly proclaim that every single councillor on our council is on the take, making contracts with lucrative stuff, and pocketing it all the time, except those Reform councillors who are on there. They're as good as gold. But everyone else, oh no, they're on the take. And it's not surprising, because that has been something that has been said about councillors for years. Now, yes, there are a few bad apples. That always happens. Hey, it even happens in Westminster. We've seen that happen from time to time, but it is not this widespread thing these lunatics want to make it. And when they do this, when they do these outside audits, I guarantee you now, nothing's going to be found. Nothing's going to be found. They might find one or two, but the vast majority, nope, not going to find anything. So the irony of this is that such examples would be an example of the very waste the party has vowed to wipe out, with little purpose other than to make reform politicians feel good about themselves. And that's the whole point. You spend millions now of local taxpayers' money to call in an auditor to review these contracts, and it makes the reform politician feel good. Meanwhile, that local council now doesn't have money to I don't know, put into adult social care or, maybe build some, social housing, all these types of things. They, um, you know, th- it's going to be such a disaster. Honestly, it's going to be such a disaster over this. Anyway, the likely, of course, trouble ahead for reform councillors should give, of course, both Labour and the Tories pause for thought. If they are panicked now into aping reform, at some point, both parties want to see many voters will surely opt for the real thing. Better to take on Farage, expose the contradictions in his policy, and offer and deploy ammunition provided by the long overdue scrutiny his party will now receive. It has responsibility as well as power. And that's how you stop Farage. That is really how you stop Farage. Expose all the contradictions. These councillors, all the stuff they're going to do is going to provide you with so much ammunition to fire back, to prove just how bad reform are, how bad his policies are, and what a disaster a reform government would be. If he ends up bankrupting any of these local councils, that's it. Over. Quite frankly. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up doing that. I would not be surprised if he ends up doing that. Would not surprise me in the least. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. But I think right there, that is the future of what's going to happen. That they are going to waste a ton of taxpayer money on very frivolous stuff to make themselves feel just a little bit better. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.